someone who's not just building cars or charging stations, he's building an entire ecosystem. Mr. Vinit Bansal.
EV has been a space where you have the policies changing. The government was also trying to, discover itself, and the technology changing.
Building an EV ecosystem in India isn't just about rolling out vehicles, but actually creating a new way of thinking.
So building trust and building your network is very important, and ethics helps to define that.
Hey everyone, welcome back to FaceTime with Leaders powered by Directors Institute World Council of Directors. I'm Charu Mehra, and today's episode is going to energize you, quite literally, because we're talking about the future of mobility, clean energy, and innovation. And the leader joining us today is one for driving forces behind India's electric revolution. Our guest today is someone who's not just building cars or charging stations, he's building an entire ecosystems. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Vinit Bansal, the founder and managing director of EV Motors India Private Limited. With over 30 years of experience across automotive, energy, private equity, and management consulting, Mr. Bansal has worked with some of the world's most iconic companies, from Ford Motor Company to Delphi, before founding EV Motors India in 2016. His mission? To create a commercially viable e-mobility ecosystem for India, from charging infrastructure to battery manufacturing to smart software platforms, all driven by clean energy. He's someone who believes India shouldn't copy global models blindly, but crafts its own sustainable path. Mr. Bansal, we are so thrilled to have you here today. How are you doing, sir?
Thank you very much, Charu. Thank you for inviting me to this podcast. Really happy to be here. It's very exciting times for India and specifically the e-mobility space, with the government, having made an agenda to get 30% penetration over the next few years. So it's very exciting times for the industry and for us.
Great. I'm looking forward to having a great discussion with you today, sir. So let's get started.
Sure. Look forward.
So, Mr. Bansal, you've had such an interesting career. But before we dive into all the exciting stuff around EVs and the future of clean energy, I'd love to start simple. Could you share a bit about your journey with us, how it all began, and what led you to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my journey in the automotive actually began when I was 4 years old, when I first stepped into an assembly plant with my father,
Wow.
who was also in the auto industry. So I was kind of, quite interested in the machines, and that kind of led me to, pursue my engineering. And subsequent to that, I joined the automotive industry, worked with Ford and General Motors, and specifically, when I was with Ford, I had the opportunity to work on a program called PNGV, which is the Partnership for Next Generation of Vehicles. So this
Okay.
was a joint initiative between Ford, GM, and Chrysler in the US. And we looked at multiple alternate energy technologies, including fuel cells, electric vehicles, flywheels, turbine, and our goal was to look at 80 miles to a gallon. So that kind of got my exposure into this space, and this was in the late 90s. And subsequent to that, in 2015, I was in India and got an opportunity to get introduced to some of the ministers, and got an opportunity to outline in terms of my experience and the opportunities here in India. And what I found was they really welcomed, in terms of me coming back here and providing me the information that I was looking for. At that time, India was looking at putting, buses, looking at bringing EVs in the mass transportation. So
Right.
the access to information was readily available. So I thought it's a good time now to come back to India, and then started EV Motors in 2016. And since then, the journey has been in terms of looking at bus segment, chargers, batteries, and now where we are focusing on the two-wheeler, three-wheeler segment.
Wow, wow, that is so wonderful. It's such an inspiring journey, Mr. Bansal, and I can really sense the intensity of that period, and it gives such a clear picture of how your journey and what drives you today. So it's truly amazing how every part of your experience seems to have led perfectly into what you are doing right now with EV motors. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, thank you very much. So, yeah,
Great.
it's quite yeah, yeah.
So let's talk a bit about your work today and the exciting world of electric mobility. So, the electric vehicle space in India is growing fast, but it also comes with its fair share of challenges, from infrastructure to awareness and affordability. From your experience, what's been the biggest learning so far while trying to build an EV ecosystem here in India?
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, over the last 8, 9 years, there have been several learnings, but I think the two or three that I would specifically like to mention is, the first is, the government policies and standards is a big driver for any new industry or new technology that is being
Yes.
worked on.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes very important in terms of how the government is looking at the various policies and standards. So before the industry starts investing big, it's very important to understand what those standards are. So
Right.
for the two-wheeler, three-wheeler, the standards was issued in September of 2024. So I think it's post that we are now very actively looking at investing in this space as far as the two-wheeler, three-wheeler is concerned.
Okay.
So because I think that's what drives the investments. The
Right.
second, yeah, the second biggest learning is that when we talk about EVs, the upfront cost of acquisition is relatively high. Initially, for any new technology, the cost of acquisition is high, and as you get, as the technology gets adopted, the cost starts coming down. And one of
Right.
the unique things with EVs is that if you look at the total cost of ownership is very critical for commercialization. So you
Mm-hmm.
need to look at a longer horizon, time horizon.
Right.
So that means financing is a very important part of your solution and your strategy. So because if you look at even though upfront cost is high, the cost of operations is very low. And
Okay.
that's where we are comparing the fuel of electricity versus the hydrocarbon fuel. So financing becomes a very important part of your solution offering. and
Right.
and and one of the last thing, primarily from a startup perspective, I find that a lot of these startups are looking at manufacturing themselves. And you are in an industry, when you talk about two-wheeler, three-wheeler, there are four large players which are producing 1 million units, right?
Right.
So how do you compete with them? And for a startup, I think one of the learning is to focus more on the technology and look at how you leverage the existing infrastructure. That
Right.
becomes very critical. So for startups and young entrepreneurs, I think one of the important messages that try to see how you can look at outsourcing manufacturing, and that gives you the cash flow, which becomes very
Right.
important in terms of being profitable and having a positive cash flow.
Right. Wow, that is such an interesting way to look at it, sir. And I really loved how you framed it. This really showed that building an EV ecosystem in India isn't just about rolling out vehicles, but actually creating a new way of thinking from infrastructure to awareness to affordability. And I can imagine how much learning and adaptability that must have required from you and your team. So, it really highlights your strategic vision and leadership in such a dynamic way. So, kudos to that. So, thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing that with
Yeah.
us.
Thank you.
So, when you think about innovation, especially in a space that's evolving almost every few months, how do you keep your teams motivated to stay ahead, try new things, and still stay grounded in what really works for the Indian consumers?
Yeah, so Charu, it's kind of very important to work with the team is to make sure you share the overall vision of the company first. So sharing the vision is very critical, and making sure that your team is aligned with the vision. So I'll give you an example. When we kind of started the journey way back in 2016, 17, so I,
Right.
at the very onset that, we need to look at the complete ecosystem. And we were looking at batteries and chargers, as well as charging infra. So there was a lot of the thought process within the team was, why are we focusing on so many different segments? And we were not really looking at revenue generation at that time. It was more about getting the right product to the market. So
Right.
so I think sharing a vision is very important. We did have people leave the company because the thought was, typically, revenue generation is very critical. But when you're looking at innovating products, sometimes it just takes time for getting the right product. And EV has been a space where you have the policies changing. The government was also trying to discover itself, and the technology changing. So the other thing is staying focused, right? It is very important for the organization to stay focused and make sure that your product solutions and efforts are all working in that same direction. And
Right.
lastly, what I would like to say is, in terms of to make sure that people continue to innovate, is to celebrate small successes, because that is very
Yes.
important. When we were
Absolutely.
developing our battery packs, we had a lot of failures, in terms of through our journey, because we were looking at some new technologies that we were working on. So for the team to not get bogged down by failures, it's kind of very important to celebrate the small successes that you have in the journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is such a great way to look at it, It's really impressive of how you manage to keep the teams inspired and open to experimentation while still keeping an eye on what's practical and scalable. Balancing that kind of creative energy with the real world needs isn't easy, and it really speaks to your leadership style and clarity of vision. So that's what actually matters for Indian consumers. So thank you so much. So you've often said that India needs its own EV model rather than just copying what works abroad. Could you share an example of something you chose to do differently here, something that really reflects India's unique needs and market realities?
Yeah, sure. So Charu, we are focused on the two-wheeler, three-wheeler segment, right? And when you look at this particular segment from an Indian perspective, you see a lot of the gig force who have adopted, or if the EVs are currently being utilized by the gig force workers. So there's a big increase in that segment.
Right,
The second thing, which is very unique to Indian environment, is the 10-minute deliveries and 30-minute deliveries that are there. So you don't find this kind of delivery, last mile delivery scenarios in the rest of the world. So,
right,
so when you implement solutions, when we talk about EVs, so you need to look at quick turnaround, fast charging, and a lot of the times I've been told, and even when I'm talking to investors and also within my peer group, so what I've been told, that you need slow charging and battery swapping, so you don't need fast charging. And but battery swapping is nothing but fast charging, and it is to me it's more like a band-aid to fast charging. So there are other solutions, other technologies that are out there which needs to be implemented. So that's the kind of uniqueness that I'm saying, that even though in the rest of the world you don't need fast charging, but specifically in India, there is a use case that requires you to bring in fast charging, especially DC charging, and creating a charging infrastructure for the two-wheeler,
right,
three-wheeler. Today,
right,
the whole market is focused on the cars and buses, but where the real opportunity is the 95% of the two-wheeler, three-wheeler market, to bring in that fast charging. So that's what we are looking at, is how do we bring innovation and resolve and work on solutions that are different from what the rest of the industry is working on today.
right, right. And just wanted to put across that that swapping thing that you were talking about. I have actually seen one of the stations in one of
Yes.
Delhi Metro's station where there are a huge chargers put, and these
Yeah.
delivery people come and they swap the batteries to get a new one and then they go. So I've seen
Yeah,
that happening. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, the swapping is, I mean, the biggest cost for any EVs is the batteries,
absolutely.
and you're putting more inventory into the system. So
Exactly.
and to achieve the end of fast charging. So there are
Right,
alternate
right.
solutions that, as a startup and so we are looking at alternate solutions on that one.
Right, right. But that is such a powerful example you gave. It really captures of what makes India's EV story so unique. And I really like how things like how you've taken in mind things like cost sensitivity, driving conditions, and consumer behavior. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And these decisions kind of really show how much thought and experimentation go into making EVs truly work in India.
Yeah, it's a very challenging environment, and you have to bring in that creativity and innovation. So
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. So, thank you so much for sharing that. All right, Mr. Bansal, we've talked about your journey, your work, and the EV revolution. Now, let's shift gears and have some fun. This is our
sure,
rapid fire round. Quick questions, quick answers. Just say the first thing that comes to your mind. Ready?
sure, sure, ready,
Okay.
yes.
Here we go. First one. What's the one thing you absolutely can't start your day without?
Oh, I must have my black tea in the morning.
Oh wow, nice. I'm also a tea person, not black, but I need my tea in the morning. All right, next one. If you weren't in the EV or automotive space, what would you think you'd be doing today?
I'll be a financial advisor.
Huh? Wow, nice, wonderful. Okay, next one. One habit or routine that keeps you productive and focused no matter how busy things get.
Oh, I love reading it. It kind of helps me to kind of ease a lot of things, get the stress out, and keeps my mind away from various activities. So reading.
Absolutely. I can totally relate to that. I love reading myself. Whenever I get a chance, I open my Kindle and start reading. All right, next one. What's your go-to comfort food after a long, tiring day?
Oh, fresh fruits. I love fruits, and it helps me to relax and also healthy.
Wow, that's a really good take here. I usually people say dal chawal or rajma chawal or things like that, but this is a different one and a nice one. Okay. One book, podcast, or show that's inspired you recently.
Yeah, I mean, working in India, I think, I did this book, Jugaad Innovation. So when you are working in India, I think that book was very, very inspiring in terms of talking about different things that you need to do to really make things happen here in India. So Jugaad Innovation.
That sounds like a really interesting one. I will pick that up. All right, next one. One thing that people often get wrong about you.
Oh, my energy level. I think, I am full of energy, and it's just that I can, I'm a workaholic. So you know
Wow, wonderful. Okay, next one. If you could instantly teleport anywhere in the world right now, where would you go and why?
Oh, it will be to my children wherever they are. So, I mean, I haven't, unfortunately, haven't spent a lot of time with my children as they were growing up. So, would love to see how, as much time I can spend with them.
Wow, that's so sweet. Okay, the final one. If your life had a tagline or motto, what would that be?
Well, it will be to have the courage to do the right things, no matter what the outcome is, because, to me, I live by that, and you are faced with a lot of challenging situations, and you need to have the courage to do the right thing.
Wow, that's a really nice one. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Bansal. That was so fun. And I think we just learned more about you in those few minutes than any board meeting could ever reveal. So thank you for being so candid with us.
Thank you.
You've spent years in industries where precision, trust, and long term vision are absolutely critical, from automotive to clean energy. And as we all know, every industry has had its moment of wake up calls, times where ethical lapses or poor governance made everyone stop and reflect. From your experience, have you ever come across a moment, maybe in your career or within the wider industry, that really shaped the way you think about ethics and governance in business?
Yeah, I mean, ethics and business and governances are very critical for any business. Also, it kind of for any individual. It kind of really defines what businesses are and what individuals are, and what the work ethic sets up the culture within the organization.
Right,
So ethics also helps you to build the trust, whether be it your employees, whether be it your customers or your vendors and partners. So building trust and building your network is very important, and ethics helps to define that. So I mean, I'll give you an example. When I was working at Ford, one of the I was in the manufacturing, and launching a new product is very critical. So any delays in launch has very huge repercussions. So we were working on a particular project where we kind of decked the engine to the vehicle, and we have a cycle time, we have to match and meet. So we were having very difficulty in terms of making that work. So we were faced with a situation where we had to bring to everybody, the management, attention that we're having the problem. Obviously, in a big large company, any delays could also lead to termination of employment or whatever it is. It could be so, because especially so. At that point of time, bringing it to the attention of the management so that you can help solve the problems, and let it not escalate to larger issues. So
right,
so that work ethic in terms of being transparent and identifying the issues, and flagging it is very critical aspect of it, and it
right.
it helps to build the management trust with you also, so that they can trust you. But as long as you're able to solve the problem, so I think that goes to work ethics.
Right.
Now on the governance side, that's more in terms of the compliance, to with the various laws that the government has enacted, and it's important as a leader, within an organization, to make sure you're complying to all the various laws, and so governance is also very important and critical, and sometimes it can lead to large penalties and other repercussions. So both ethics and governance are very important for businesses, and it needs to be handled in a right manner. So
Absolutely, sir. And I think that it is for any industry, any business you talk about, they should be treated not as, governance should not be treated as a checkbox, but it should be in the DNA of the business. And, I really think that these moments shapes your perspective on leadership and accountability. So I can imagine how challenging it must have been to navigate the situation, but you did that. So kudos on that. And
yeah.
thank you for sharing that with us.
Mhm. Sure. Thank you. I mean, as you rightly said, accountability is very important. So governance helps
Absolutely.
with that. Yeah.
Absolutely. You've recently joined Directors Institute, and we are thrilled to have you as a part of this growing community of leaders. What drew you to join the institute? Was there something specific you were looking to learn, share, or explore as a part of this network?
I mean, Charu, I mean, one of the things for joining the Directors Institute was, to being part of a network, peer group network, in terms of directors network, and also to be to enhance the learning, because right now governance and compliances are becoming very critical and important, and especially from an Indian perspective, there are a lot of emphasis being laid there. So learning is a never ending process, and it's something that as leader you need to continue to learn. So being part of the community helps in that learning process. Also, EV being a very early adoption stage right now in India. So it's important to network with the peer group, with the knowledge, seekers and knowledge providers, to understand what's happening in the industry. So participating in a directors institute will help to, in terms of network with the people. And then one of the other specific thing is, a lot of young engineers have kind of reached out to me, looking for my advice. And one of the particular thing was, there was a young college graduate had just come up with, some technology on vision and AI to look at, for accidents that happen on the road, in terms of to
Okay.
wake up the yeah to nudge and wake up the drivers, so there's a vision. And so he wanted me to participate in terms of unofficially in terms of being an advisor. So being part of the institute kind of helps to get some formal understanding to so
Right.
that can advise young engineers on this thing. So very happy to be part of this community, and looking forward to interacting with the peer group.
Wow, that is a wonderful feedback, sir. And it's really inspiring to see that in spite of having such a huge and extensive career, you're still looking forward to learning something and growing your network. And it's really interesting to hear what drew you to the institute. That really highlights the value of peer learning. So I wish you all the best for your future endeavors, sir. And it was such great talking to you today.
Oh, thank you, Charu. Thank you for inviting me, and it's been a pleasure. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Great. So, Mr. Bansal, that has truly been such an insightful conversation. What really stands out is your belief in creating solutions that are practical, sustainable, and people focused, something every leader listening today can learn from. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your learning, and your vision with us.
Thank you very much.
And to everyone tuning in, thank you for joining us on another episode of FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute World Council of Directors. Remember, leadership isn't just about building companies, it's about building impact, it's about leading with purpose, staying grounded, and thinking ahead. I'm Charu Mehra signing off. Until next time, stay curious, stay driven, and keep learning with integrity. Thank you.